The battlefield Moon, once a strategic stronghold for the Coalition, was now a graveyard. Craters scar the surface in all directions. Smoke curled up from collapsed turrets and shattered troop carriers. Everything, armor, weapons, bodies, was coated in a layer of dark dust, oily ash, and dry blood. Captain Jace Renner guided his dropship through the wreckage-strewn airspace, the ship's thrusters humming beneath him. The cockpit was cramped, hot, and stank of hydraulic fluid and scorched plastic. Red indicator lights blinked on his dash. Hull integrity was stable. Power supply at 74%. Radio silence still active. Good enough. Jace had been in the Terran Space Command for over a decade. Dropship pilot. Battlefield recovery specialist. 47 combat operations. 13 unregistered evacuations. The brass trusted him with dirty jobs and expected silence in return. He wasn't a hero. He was just good at staying alive and keeping others breathing when he could. Today's mission was routine, if anything could be called that on Paralyzed. Coalition Command had ordered a low-altitude recon sweep over Grid K-22 to identify salvageable tech, intel chips, and field-ready weapons. No rescues, no civilian evac, no enemy contact, unless absolutely necessary. The war had stretched resources thin. Command didn't want liabilities. They wanted usable data and functioning machines. But as the ship hovered over a particularly torn stretch of ground, the onboard scanner pinged something unexpected. Life sign detected. Origin, Zarithi Bijo signature. Status, critical. Jace narrowed his eyes. The Zarithi Dominion, a military culture bred for conquest, especially their frontline units. Tough, aggressive, ruthless. And this one was still alive? He slowed the ship and shifted the thrusters in a hover mode. The terrain below was uneven, half-buried equipment, scorched trees, blood trails dried into the sand. He spotted her. One body, large, still breathing. He didn't move right away, just stared. His pulse ticked up. Commander Electra of the Zarithi Dominion had a reputation. Jace knew the name. She had commanded a flanking force that wiped out an entire Terran battalion 3 months ago. Intel reports described her as strategically relentless and physically intimidating. No mercy, no retreat. But now, she was motionless, crushed beneath a collapsed heavy artillery frame. Her legs were pinned from the hips down. Her armor, black and sharp-edged, with violet Dominion markings, was torn, burned, and partially fused to her skin. Jace landed the dropship 50 meters away and disembarked. The moment he stepped onto the cracked ground, the heat punched him. His boots sank slightly into the gritty surface, which still radiated warmth from recent explosions. He made his way forward slowly, rifle slung across his chest, eyes on the wreckage. When he reached her, she turned her head. She was alive. Barely. Her skin, deep violet and slick with sweat, was torn and scraped along the shoulders and collar. Her black hair clung to her cheeks, which were streaked with dirt and blood. Her breathing was shallow, controlled. Her amber-colored eyes locked onto him. She didn't flinch. She didn't beg. She simply stared. Jace crouched beside her. His hands hovered near her ribs, but didn't touch yet. He scanned the damage quickly: fractured spine, crushed pelvis, burns, shock symptoms, internal bleeding likely. She was paralyzed, and if left here, she'd die within the hour. Her lips moved. Human. Her voice was cracked and dry. "Yeah," he said. "That's me." Her next breath caught. "Protocol, no evac for enemies." He didn't answer, because she was right. Jace looked around. The field was quiet. No drones. No movement. No other survivors. Coalition Command had declared this sector closed. They didn't expect anything salvageable, just data retrieval. She had been left by her own people. That's what made him pause. He stood up, walking a few steps away, trying to clear his head. This was simple. She was a Dominion officer. A direct threat. She had killed Terran soldiers, maybe even people he knew. She was paralyzed and abandoned. She couldn't walk, couldn't fight. She was no longer a strategic asset to anyone, and he was under orders. But there was something in her eyes, Not fear, not pleading, anger, humiliation, and underneath it, exhaustion. She wasn't waiting to be saved. She was waiting to die with whatever dignity she had left. He felt his jaw tighten. A voice played in his mind, his commanding officer back at Orbit Base. Renner, you disobey one more field order, you're done. You get me? He looked back at her. She had closed her eyes. Her breathing was shallower now. He walked back over, knelt down again, and put his arms under her shoulders. Her eyes snapped open. What are you doing? Saving your life? He muttered. You'll be court-martialed. I'm used to it. She tried to object, but her voice failed. Her body tensed against him. She was strong, taller than him, heavier. Her limbs were limp, but her upper body retained power. As he lifted her, blood from the wounds soaked into his sleeves. Her breath came fast now. Her chest rose against his. Her hand, trembling, pressed lightly against his chest, not to push him away, but to brace herself. As he carried her toward the ship, he didn't look back. The dropship's ramp closed behind them with a loud hiss. The ship lifted off seconds later. Jay set her down on the med platform. She tried to push herself upright, but collapsed back, gasping. Her muscles were locking up. He removed the top half of her armor with a fusion cutter. Carefully, precisely. She winced. Her voice came again, softer. Why are you doing this? He didn't look at her. Because you're not dead yet. Her breath caught. She didn't respond. He hooked her 2 and 4, injected pain inhibitors, and activated the automated medkit. The diagnostic display blinked in red. It wasn't good. She had days, maybe less, unless she received more advanced care. And command would never approve it. He leaned against the bulkhead, rubbing his hands over his face. He knew what came next. He would have to lie, alter the flight logs, block outgoing telemetry, keep her hidden in the safe house out in the asteroid belt, risk everything. For a woman who might hate him the second she could speak clearly. He looked at her again. She was watching him, expression unreadable. In that moment, Jace Renner understood he had already made the decision. Not for the mission, not for orders, but because somewhere in the heat, ash, and silence of Paralyzed 9, a line had been crossed, and he couldn't go back. The dropship's engines hummed steadily as it cut through the void between Paralyzed 9 and the outer sectors of the asteroid belt. Inside, the lighting was dim, emergency mode only. Jace had shut down most non-essential systems to avoid detection. Navigation was manual now, and every signal output had been masked. He didn't want anyone knowing where he was going, or who he was carrying. Electra lay, strapped to the med platform in the center of the hold. Her upper body was bare save for a thin medical wrap around her chest and ribs. The rest of her armor had been carefully removed, what little wasn't fused to her lower frame. She hadn't spoken in nearly an hour, but she hadn't lost consciousness either. Jace glanced back from the pilot's seat. Her eyes were open again, unfocused, scanning the metal ceiling. Her breathing was slower now, steadier. The safe house was still 3 hours away. He'd retrofitted it himself years ago during another unsanctioned rescue. A derelict mining outpost, sealed and repressurized, tucked deep inside a crater on asteroid 714 Delta. Off-grid. No eyes. No logs. Jace returned to the med bay and knelt beside her. He checked the 4-line. Fluid was flowing properly. The sedatives were light, enough to dull the pain without dulling her mind. Vitals are stabilizing, he said aloud, more for himself than her. Electra blinked. Slowly. Why aren't you asking me questions? He met her eyes. Because you're not ready to answer them. She stared at him for a moment. You're not a medic. No. Then why do this? Risk yourself. Hide me. He thought about lying. About giving her the official line. Humanitarian instinct, battlefield mercy. But none of that would hold. Not with her. Not after what she'd been through. You were breathing, he said finally. And you weren't supposed to be. She didn't respond. Her jaw clenched. I've seen plenty of people left behind, he added. Enemy and friendly. Some deserve it. You didn't. You don't know me, she said sharply, voice tight. Not yet. Electra's hands gripped the edge of the med platform. Her upper body strength was intact. Impressive, even in her condition. She shifted slightly, her face tightening with pain. She looked down at herself. What was left of her armor, the raw skin, the bandages. How bad is it? Pelvic fracture. Spinal trauma. You're paralyzed from the waist down? Maybe permanently. She swallowed hard. Her fingers curled against the platform, knuckles white. No regenerative field? No nerve repair. Not in this rust bucket, he said. Safe house has more gear, but still Terran tech. Can't promise miracles. She nodded once. It wasn't acceptance, just acknowledgement. Her voice dropped. They left me because I couldn't walk. He remained silent. I gave 20 years to the Dominion. Trained since adolescence. Led 6 campaigns. Held the southern flanks at Karath during orbital collapse. Her eyes locked on his. And none of it mattered when I couldn't move my legs. You're not their problem anymore, Jace said. I never was their problem. I was their weapon. For a moment, neither spoke. Then softly she added, and what am I now? Jace sat down on the bench across from her. Right now, you're a passenger. A patient. Someone I didn't leave behind. She exhaled sharply, like a bitter laugh, almost escaped but didn't. Silence settled again, but not heavy this time. Jace leaned back, watching her. Your name? I know it. Electra. Commander. Zarithi Dominion. You were at the Maldari front. She nodded. Third column. I led the push through the ravine. I was in that sector. Piloted evac for the 119th. Her brow lifted. Then you know how many of yours didn't make it. Yeah, he said quietly. I do. Neither of them flinched. She shifted slightly, wincing. Why didn't you shoot me when you saw me? He looked directly at her. Because I've seen dead soldiers before, and you didn't look like one. A beat passed, and she asked, Are you afraid of what they'll do to you? He didn't answer right away. Then, no. I'm afraid of what I'd become if I stopped caring who lived and who didn't. That silenced her more than anything else had. The next hour passed in near silence. Jace returned to the cockpit. He kept an eye on NAV, rerouting around patrol zones. No pings yet. So far, the blackout was holding. Back in the med bay, Electra remained awake. She studied the interior of the ship, her gaze tracing the seams in the ceiling, the old damage along the port wall, the patchwork repairs. Then, her voice came again. You've done this before. Jace replied from the cockpit, not turning around. A few times. Enemy soldiers? Doesn't matter. To them, it will. He sighed. Yeah, probably. Another pause. What's your name? She asked. He turned, slowly. Jace. Renner. Captain. Just barely. She nodded once. Noted. Their eyes locked again, longer this time. No threat. No heat. Just mutual awareness. The safe house came into visual range. A jagged silhouette clinging to the dark rock of the crater, its entry lights dimmed to avoid long-range detection. Jace keyed in the access code. The exterior panels began to shift and open. He stood and approached her again, checking her vitals one more time. We're here. Electra's expression was unreadable, but her voice was steady now. So what now, Captain Renner? He met her gaze. Now, he said, we see if survival is enough. The safe house pressurization seal hissed open, flooding the entry corridor with sterile, recycled air. Jace carried Electra inside, her body heavier than he remembered. Not in weight, but in the toll of reality now setting in. The med rig inside the dropship had kept her stable. But stability wasn't recovery, and she knew it. The interior of the facility was bare bones. Metallic walls lined with exposed conduit, reinforced floor plating, and a dim overhead glow from energy-efficient strips along the ceiling. It had been a mining support station once, long before the war. Now it was just his fallback zone, a place the official logs had long forgotten. Jace laid her on the med bed in the central chamber. He activated the internal systems, power grid, low-level atmospheric control, surgical diagnostics, AI-assisted medtech. The monitors blinked to life. The bed began scanning her body immediately, mapping trauma points with clinical precision. Electra's gaze swept the room. No guards, no alarms, no command structure. Her voice was quiet even. This is off book. Jace didn't look up from the monitor. Obviously, you're going to be hunted. He glanced at her. You say that like I didn't know. She tilted her head slightly. I don't understand you. That makes two of us, he muttered, adjusting the settings to begin early-stage nerve scanning. The room buzzed with low-level hums and beeps. Mechanical arms unfolded overhead, taking blood samples, preparing stim injectors, mapping her nervous system inch by inch. Electra winced as one needle pierced near her spine. No anesthesia? She asked, jaw tightening. Minimal, Jace said. You said you didn't want pity. This is what it looks like. She didn't respond, but she didn't object either. He took a step back, crossing his arms as he read the updated diagnostic results. A partial nerve pathway was still active, faint but present. The damage was extensive, but not total. It wasn't impossible. It's not permanent, he said finally. She looked over at him. How do you know? I don't. But you've got a better chance than I thought. There was a pause. Her expression softened, just slightly. Then, calmly, what happens if I walk again? He held her stare. That's up to you. For a long time, she said nothing. Jace moved around the room, beginning to unpack the gear from his survival crates. Rations, medical supplies, battery packs, 2 rifles, and a handheld comms jammer. He didn't know how long they'd be here, but it would be days at least. From the med bed, Electra's voice came again. You're not like the others. Jace kept working. What does that mean? Most humans I met wore fear like armor. You don't. You're either braver than most or more damaged. He smirked faintly. It's usually the second one. She seemed to study him for a moment. Then she shifted, trying to move her legs. Nothing happened. Her jaw locked tight. Give it time, Jace said, his tone low. Your nervous system's in shock. I don't need reassurance, she snapped. He stopped, turned. I'm not giving you reassurance, he said. I'm giving you facts. You want a medical report? Fine. You've got a 40% chance of motor function recovery. Less without cooperative rehab. And even then, walking unassisted isn't guaranteed. The Dominion wouldn't waste a stim pack on you. I did. She met his stare again. And this time, her silence didn't come from pain. It came from thought. You weren't supposed to be there, she said quietly. Terralee's sector was abandoned. He nodded. I was rerouted last minute. Command didn't even bother updating the NAV logs. You were never meant to find me. No, he agreed. But I did. A long moment passed. Electra leaned her head back. My squad pulled out 12 minutes after I was hit. I was conscious the entire time. I watched the shuttle lift off. Jay sat on the edge of a nearby supply bench. It didn't try to drag you out? No. I ordered the fallback. It was supposed to be temporary. But Command reassessed the sector. Cut support. We were labeled expendable. Same thing happened to my crew 3 years ago, Jace said. We were pinned down in a crater on Darwin Ridge. Our dropship was shot down. HQ pulled air support without telling us. Only reason I got out was because a comms tech ignored orders and sent a personal ping. Got court-martialed for it. What happened to the tech? Dishonorable discharge. Civilian sentence. Last I heard, she opened a shuttle repair dock on Vega 5. Live's quiet now. Electra closed her eyes. That doesn't sound like justice. No, but sometimes survival is the only reward we get. That settled in the air between them, heavy and real. A chime sounded. The medbed's initial diagnostic finished running. Jay stood and tapped through the report. Protein levels stable. Vitals holding. Tissue regeneration beginning at the cellular level. They had a small window to initiate stim therapy. I'm going to start targeted nerve reactivation tonight, he said. You'll feel heat, pressure, pain. She nodded once. Do it. Jay set the system. The room dimmed slightly as the bed activated the procedure. Electra inhaled sharply as the first pulse hit. Her arms flexed. She clenched her fists. He watched her quietly. In that moment, he knew what the audience might be asking. Why is he risking everything for her? Was this guilt? Rebellion? Mercy? Maybe all of it. But Jace didn't think in terms of ideology anymore. He made a decision on Terralee's 9. He wasn't trying to fix her. He wasn't trying to redeem himself. He just didn't want to leave another person behind. Not again. He sat by her side for the next 40 minutes as the machine continued its work. No words passed between them. Just the rhythm of the pulses, the occasional sharp intake of breath, and the knowledge that the line they'd crossed had no way back. The safe house grew colder at night, even with the thermal regulators humming quietly in the background. The atmosphere inside was dry, stale but breathable. Outside the reinforced walls was nothing but space rock and silent vacuum. No patrols, no signals, no signs of life. Inside, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was watchful. Jay sat at the small utility desk in the corner of the room, cycling through intercepted comm bursts on a cracked transmitter screen. Most were automated fleet pings, low-priority signals from coalition vessels rerouting through outer sectors. Nothing about Paralyzed. Nothing about Electra. He leaned back, rubbing his eyes. 3 days had passed since he pulled her from the rubble. In that time, she hadn't asked for anything. No help beyond what was necessary. No comfort. But he noticed the tension in her jaw every time she tried, and failed to move her legs. Across the room, Electra was propped up on the med bed, her arms steady on the metallic rails, sweat along her brow as she tried to pull herself upright without assistance. Her bare shoulders glistened under the low lights. The medical wrap at her torso had been removed earlier, replaced with a reinforced recovery harness designed to stabilize her spine during movement exercises. Jace had modified it from old exosuit parts. She grunted low through clenched teeth and pressed up again. Her biceps flexed, controlled. Her core engaged, and her lower half stayed inert. Again, give yourself a minute, Jace said, standing and approaching. I don't need rest, she said, panting. I need results. You're pushing muscle groups that haven't been activated since the injury. If you force it, you'll tear something. She gave him a sharp look. You didn't seem worried about tearing protocol when you pulled me out of that crater. He stopped beside her and folded his arms. That was instinct. This is anatomy. For a second, she looked like she might throw something at him, if she could. Instead, she exhaled, her shoulders dropping slightly. I was always the strongest in my unit, she said quietly. I never needed help. Not once. This is humiliation. Jace crouched down so they were eye level. His voice was calm. It's not humiliation. It's healing. And it's slow. That doesn't make it weakness. I don't want to depend on you. You already do. The words landed hard. But instead of anger, she gave him something else, something quieter. I know. She looked away, focusing on her legs. Jay stepped back and grabbed the stem wand from the side console. We'll increase the pulse frequency on the upper quads. Try to trick the nerves into reconnecting. You might feel something this time. Or I might feel nothing. Yeah, he said. But maybe you'll feel something else instead. She looked at him. Like what? Hope. He didn't expect her to laugh. It wasn't a full one, just a short breath from her nose, but it was enough to mark a shift. He applied the stem wand to her left thigh. Her body twitched. She clenched her fists. Her jaw tightened. After 20 seconds, he paused. Anything? She shook her head. No, but it hurt more this time. That's good. It doesn't feel good. It's not supposed to. A quiet moment passed. She leaned back again, sweat running along her collarbone. Her voice came low. Back on Paralyzed, what would you have done if I asked you to kill me? Jace didn't answer right away. He set the wand down, sat on the edge of the bed platform, and looked at her directly. I would have said no. Why? Because it wouldn't have been your decision. Not in that state. You weren't thinking clearly. I was, she said. I knew I had no use to anyone. Not to my command. Not even to myself. Well, maybe I wasn't ready to let someone die just because they couldn't walk. She didn't respond. Her fingers traced the edge of the med bed slowly, methodically. Do you always do this? She asked after a while. Do what? Save people you're not supposed to. Jace looked down at the floor, then back at her. I've been ordered to leave people behind before. I didn't listen then, either. Why not? He thought for a long moment. Then, because every time I followed those orders, it got easier. And that scared me. She studied him. You still think I'm worth saving? She asked. He didn't hesitate. Yeah, I do. That answer hung between them. A soft chime sounded. The biomonitor flashed a pulse registration, faint electrical activity in the left quadriceps. Jace blinked and turned back to the console. Hold still. What is it? You had a response. He adjusted the sensitivity on the display. A second spike appeared, stronger than the first. Electra's face remained expressionless, but her hands gripped the bed rails tighter. What does that mean? It means the signal's getting through. Your body's listening again. For a moment, her tough demeanor cracked. Her eyes darted between him and the monitor. It's not a false reading? She asked. No, it's real. She let out a slow, controlled breath, like she was trying to keep her emotions from surfacing. She nodded once. Then let's do it again. They worked for another hour. Later, after she had drifted into an exhausted sleep, Jace sat nearby, watching her chest rise and fall under the dim lights. His head ached. His body was tired, but something inside him settled for the first time in weeks. She wasn't just healing. She was fighting for herself again. And somewhere deep inside, he admitted what he'd known since the moment he carried her into the ship. He wasn't going to let her face any of this alone. The safe house's artificial day cycle had shifted to night hours. The overhead lights dimmed to a soft amber hue, and the hum of background systems settled into a lower frequency, barely audible but constant. Outside, the asteroid belt drifted quietly past the reinforced window slits, silent and cold. Jay stood at the small galley unit, pouring boiling water over dehydrated meal packs. Steam rose into the stale air. The food smelled like overcooked protein and metal. Unappetizing, but necessary. He glanced at the wall display. 17 hours since her last stim session. 6 muscle group responses. 2 partial contractions. It wasn't much, but it was enough to prove one thing. She was healing. Behind him, Electra was upright in the medical rig again, suspended just enough to reduce pressure on her hips. Her hair had been tied back loosely, exposing the bruises along her neck. She was watching him silently, as she had for the last few minutes. "You're quiet tonight," Jace said without turning. "I'm watching you move," she said. He looked over his shoulder. "What?" "Trying to figure you out." He brought one of the food packs to her, set it within arm's reach, and leaned against the console. "And I don't think you're doing this out of mercy." He gave a dry chuckle. "That obvious? You didn't hesitate to pull me off a battlefield, hide me in a decommissioned station, and spend days repairing someone your people call a war criminal. That's not mercy. That's something else." She didn't say it like an accusation, more like a challenge. Jace appreciated that about her. No illusions. No games. "I don't believe in lines anymore," he said. "Not in war. Not in rules. Only people. And you chose me." "I did." She studied him. "Even though I might kill you the moment I can walk again? If you do, at least you'll be standing." He said it plainly. No tension. No theatrics. Electra's expression shifted ever so slightly. She leaned forward and took a bite of the meal with slow precision, never breaking eye contact. Then she sat back and let the silence linger. After a moment, she asked, "What happened to you, Jace?" He didn't answer immediately. He turned back toward the galley, poured himself a cup of recycled caffeine, and drank. "When I was 28, I flew medevac during the siege of Pelion Drift. I got called in to extract a recon team under fire. I knew the airspace wasn't clear. The brass said, 'Get in, grab the wounded, get out.' I lost the whole crew. My co-pilot bled out in the seat next to me while we were spiraling toward the ground." He stopped talking. The only sound was the hum of the wall panel and the faint beeping from her vitals. "I survived. Just me. That was the day I realized the people giving orders weren't the ones paying the price." Electra's voice was low. "So you stopped listening?" "Yeah, I did." She looked down at her legs, flexing her fingers along the edge of the harness. "You think what you're doing here will redeem you?" He shook his head. "I'm not trying to be redeemed." "Then what are you trying to be?" He looked at her, tired but honest. "Someone I can live with." A long silence followed. Then her tone changed, softer, more human. "I was trained to see humans as predictable, efficient but inflexible. You're not what I expected. Neither are you." She exhaled, not quite a laugh, but close. Suddenly, the proximity alert buzzed, sharp, insistent. Jace snapped upright. He ran to the console, fingers flying across the surface. A signal spike. Directional scan. Brief, then gone. Electra's voice was calm. "What is it?" "Someone pinged us." Short-range sweep. Could have been a random sensor drift, but it was close. Coalition? Could be. Could also be your people. She looked at him. If they find me here, they'll assume you turned me. If they find us here, we're both dead. He activated the passive defense grid. Low power. Just enough to shield thermal output and mute the station's energy signature. Electra narrowed her eyes. We can't stay here. I know. You need to think about your escape plan. I have one, he said, but it doesn't involve leaving you. She looked at him hard. If I slow you down, you'll die. Then we run slower. She opened her mouth to argue, but didn't. Later that night, after the alert had passed and no second ping followed, Jace found her still awake. He approached the medbed quietly. You should rest, he said. So should you. He pulled a chair beside her. You were right, you know. Back on the ship. I don't know what I'm doing. That's the first honest thing you've said. She reached for his hand. He didn't flinch when she touched him. Her grip was strong, focused. I'm not ready to trust you, she said, voice low. But I'm not ready to lose you either. Jace held her gaze. Fair enough, he said. And in that moment, between them, no politics, no war, no rank, something settled. Not trust. Not yet. But something closer. Something real. The next morning brought no sunrise. Only the soft activation of the safe house's internal lights, programmed to simulate a diurnal cycle. It was artificial, sterile, but necessary. In deep space, time had no rhythm. Without structure, the mind drifted. And drifting was dangerous. Jay sat at the system's console reviewing the last 8 hours of sensor data. No further pings. Whoever had swept the area hadn't returned. But that didn't mean they wouldn't. Behind him, Electra was on the floor by choice. She had insisted on leaving the medbed for her first independent training session. Her upper body was strapped into the harness, connected to a narrow support rig that allowed her to control descent and pressure. Her legs remained unresponsive, but her arms were powerful. She moved with careful control, refusing to ask for help even as sweat poured down her back. Jace watched her from the corner of his eye, resisting the urge to intervene. Every time she faltered, she caught herself. When she hit the floor harder than expected, she rolled with the motion and steadied her breath. You should pace yourself, he said finally. I don't have time for pacing, she replied without looking up. You don't have a backup spine either. She gritted her teeth and pulled herself back upright using the hand grip mounted on the wall. The silence that followed was strained, but not angry. Tense. Focused. Jace turned back to the console and brought up his encrypted logs. He began drafting a falsified telemetry packet, one that would make it appear that his ship had been destroyed in the upper orbit of Paralyzed. If anyone came looking, they'd assume he was dead. It was the only way to buy more time. But halfway through compiling the data, the console beeped, an incoming burst signal. He froze. It wasn't Coalition. It was Dominion encryption. He opened the packet, routing it through a decompiler. Source: Zarithi Command Node 3. Subject: Commander Electra. Status: Kia. Message: Command has confirmed the elimination of Commander Electra following structural collapse on Paralyzed 9. Final combat records terminated. Tactical extraction rerouted. Official logs updated. Orders: remove remaining traces. Jace stared at the screen. It wasn't just a report. It was a directive, quiet, cold, and absolute. The Dominion hadn't abandoned Electra by accident. They had erased her on purpose. He copied the file and shut down the connection before the signal could be traced. When he turned, she was already watching him. You got a message. He didn't lie. Dominion Command. Status report. What did they say? He hesitated. They listed you as Kia. She didn't react immediately. She kept her expression calm, but her breathing shifted. Did they name who filed it? No. That got her attention. Her brows furrowed. That's protocol violation. Status updates require named confirmation. Jace nodded. This one was stripped. No metadata. Wiped clean. She looked away, her gaze cold now. Calculating. That means someone in command deleted me. Why? Because I know something they want buried. Jace moved closer. What do you mean? I wasn't just leading a front. I was investigating internal breaches in our high command. Communications were being intercepted. Orders were being rewritten. I traced it back to a sector chief, Someone close to the central war chamber. And you reported it? I did. That was 3 days before Paralyzed. And then I was sent on a mission with no tactical value, to a sector being abandoned. Jace exhaled slowly. You were set up. She nodded. And now they think I'm dead. Which means they're not looking for you. She looked up at him. No, they're making sure I stay dead. The implications hit like a shockwave. Jace stepped back, suddenly reevaluating everything. This wasn't just about an injured soldier left behind. This was about a cover-up. And now he was involved. You're a liability, he said. To them, I was a threat. Now I'm a loose end. He sat down across from her, hands folded tightly. Do you have proof? Not with me, but I memorized the relay keys. If we can access a Dominion databank, I can retrieve them. That's a suicide run. Not if we go to a dead relay node. Sector 16, Crater Base, Zarin. It was disabled during the Siege of Corinth. Still has buried hardware. Jace processed quickly. That's on the edge of contested space. No support, no cover, no allies. Electra straightened her torso. I won't survive another exile. If I'm going to live, I need to be more than just alive. I need to matter. He watched her, really looked. This wasn't just about revenge. It was identity, purpose, everything the Dominion had taken from her. He understood that feeling. He'd lived it for years. Then we go, he said. You're sure? No, but we don't have another option. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Jace recalibrated the dropship's stealth coding. Electra reprogrammed her rig for tighter stabilization. She had no illusions about mobility. She couldn't run, couldn't fight. But she could interface. She could think. And that, right now, was more dangerous than any weapon. Before lights dimmed again, Jace stood by her side, double-checking her gear. You're going to have to trust me, he said. I don't trust easily. Neither do I, but we're all we've got. She gave him a long, steady look. Then, when this is over, if we survive. He waited. You should teach me how to fly. He smiled for the first time in days. Deal. And as the safe house powered down into night mode, both of them understood something had changed. Not just in their situation, but in each other. Survival had evolved into something more dangerous. They had a shared mission now, and neither of them was turning back. The dropship broke through the upper haze of Zarin's atmosphere just before orbital dawn. The planet below was cold, gray, and lifeless. An ex-military moon stripped bare by years of siege warfare and forgotten scents. Thick cloud banks hung low over jagged terrain, and the comms array at Crater Base Zarin stood like a broken tooth jutting from fractured ground. Inside the cockpit, Jace adjusted the manual flight path, keeping below standard sensor altitude. The Dominion hadn't officially reclaimed the base, but the possibility of scout drones or passive surveillance couldn't be dismissed. The ship's modified stealth matrix held steady. No signal pings, no lock-ons. In the passenger bay, Electra strapped into the mobility brace that Jace had customized over the last 2 days. It looked like a hybrid between medical scaffolding and tactical armor, sleek but rugged, with gyroscopic stabilizers attached to her hips and mid-spine. Her legs were supported in semi-rigid braces, allowing assisted motion if she triggered it through upper body commands. She'd tested in simulation, but never in real field conditions. Now, there wouldn't be a trial run. How's the rig holding? Jace asked over comms. It'll hold, Electra replied, if I don't pass out halfway through. Try not to. I don't feel like dragging you up an ice shelf. You might not get a choice. He smirked under his helmet visor. That's becoming a pattern with you. They touched down half a kilometer from the relay bunker, concealed behind an eroded cliff wall. The moment the rear hatch opened, biting wind slammed into them. Cold, thin. The sky overhead flickered with the last dying remnants of the northern aurora, what used to be a defense screen, now broken and leaking energy into the upper atmosphere. Electra moved down the ramp, walking in stiff, controlled motions. She was slower than before, but she stood taller now. Each step took effort, but she didn't waver. Jace walked beside her, rifle slung low, eyes scanning the terrain. The base was silent. The relay tower loomed ahead. Half collapsed, its upper antenna snapped in half. But the foundation still held. If her intel was right, The archive port would be underground, sealed behind reinforced blast doors. As they reached the entrance, Jace knelt and pried open a maintenance panel. He bypassed the primary power junction and diverted emergency energy to the old override pad. The door hissed, groaned, then slid open halfway before jamming on rusted bearings. "That's the welcome we get," Electra muttered, stepping past him into the dark. "Better than being shot." The corridor inside smelled of coolant and age. Dust hung in the air like static. Emergency lights flickered to life as they advanced, casting long shadows along the walls. Jace's flashlight illuminated Dominion symbols etched into the metal. Abandoned authority, hollow now. They reached the archive chamber in silence. Electra approached the terminal and knelt slowly, hands moving across the surface. Her fingers danced over ancient keys, powering up the buried node. Lines of alien script blinked across the screen. "I need 30 seconds," she said. Jace stood by the doorway, weapon raised. The silence pressed in. Then noise. A sharp crack from the hallway. He turned. "We've got movement." "How many?" "Don't know yet." She didn't look up. "I can't stop. This is the only copy." "Then I hold them." Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Metal on metal, deliberate and coordinated. Not scavengers. Not random. Dominion. 3 soldiers emerged from the dark, rifles raised, visors glowing in the dim light. Jace fired first. The hallway lit up in short, controlled bursts. He dropped the first soldier with 2 shots to the chest plate. The second ducked and returned fire. Plasma bolts scorched the wall beside him. Electra stayed focused, even as rounds struck the bulkhead behind her. Her voice was calm but urgent. "I'm transferring the relay codes." 30% uploaded. Jace moved into a better position, flanking the second soldier and dropping him with a burst to the throat joint. The third hesitated. Then Electra spoke, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Unit designation, Vector. Stand down. I'm alive, and I have command override." The soldier froze, confused. His weapon lowered just for a second. Jace didn't wait. He shot him cleanly. Silence returned. Electra finished the upload. "We have the proof." He moved to her side. "What exactly did you get?" "Encrypted correspondence. Command level logs. Orders rerouted from senior channels. Evidence of internal sabotage. Enough to bring down the people who erased me. And how do we survive long enough to use it? We broadcast it to both sides. At once. If everyone hears it, no one can suppress it. That's going to burn everything. It already is." She tried to stand, but stumbled, legs locking from the strain. Jace caught her before she fell, one arm under her shoulder, guiding her back to balance. Their eyes met. "You don't have to carry this alone anymore," he said. "I don't intend to." She leaned into him, not from weakness, but from choice. They moved quickly back through the corridors, exiting the relay site just as the first warning pings struck their HUDs. More Dominion scouts inbound. No time to fight. No time to hide. They reached the ship in full sprint, Jace carrying her the last few meters. As the engines roared to life, the horizon behind them lit up with drop fire. They took off hard, cutting low through the atmosphere. Electra slumped in her seat, exhausted, blood on her lip, her breathing shallow, but her grip still firm on the data core clutched in her lap. "This isn't over," she said. Jace looked at her, eyes sharp. "No," he said. "It's just beginning." And behind them, the world they'd both escaped from began to burn. The comm station aboard Jace's dropship blinked red. Signal interference. Jace adjusted the stabilizers manually, bypassing the ship's damaged uplink array. Outside the cockpit window, the asteroid belt passed like a blur of frozen debris. They were in the shadow of Erie's Prime, an independent broadcasting satellite station with no allegiance, no censorship, and no interest in war politics. Perfect. Behind him, Electra sat in the co-pilot's chair, eyes narrowed at the screen. Her posture was upright despite her condition. She wore a modified pilot vest over a new brace rig. She didn't look like a fugitive anymore. She looked like a leader. "Uplink established," Jace said, double-checking the encryption. "One-time burst, non-traceable, wide spectrum. Electra nodded, inserting the drive. Everyone gets it. Dominion, coalition, civilians. No more silence. He glanced at her. You ready? Her jaw tensed. Then, yes. He activated the system. The message began broadcasting. Across 100 sectors, encrypted Dominion orders, falsified mission reports, and secret recordings from internal war councils exploded onto networks. For a full 5 minutes, the most powerful people in the Dominion were stripped bare, on every channel, in every language, under every flag. Electra's voice followed, recorded just hours before. I was told to die for the Dominion. I refused. What they fear most is not my survival. It's a truth I carry. I was erased, but I remember, and I'm not the only one. The signal ended. Silence followed. Heavy. Final. Jace shut down the system. They sat in stillness for a long moment. Now we wait, she said. We might not be safe anywhere after this. Then we keep moving. Together, he asked. She looked at him. You didn't leave me behind, Jace. I'm not leaving you now. Outside, long-range scanners blinked. No active pursuit, no inbound threats. The Dominion hadn't reacted yet. But that didn't matter. The truth was already spreading. Whatever came next couldn't be undone. He stood and moved beside her, offering his hand. You still want to learn how to fly? She took it. Teach me. He helped her into the pilot's seat. Her fingers hovered over the controls, then settled with precision. You'll have to let go, she said quietly. I already did. She piloted the ship out of the asteroid field, stabilizers adjusting as she guided them into open space. Her movements were slow, deliberate, but confident. Not flawless, but free. As the stars opened before them, Jace leaned back. They had no orders, no command, no war to fight, just a future to build, together. And for the first time in a long time, neither of them was alone.